Okay, today we're going to be talking about multiplying and factoring. So beginning up here at the top, again, when I'm multiplying, we're multiplying a monomial times a trinomial on the inside, so we're going to use the distributive property. So again, I'm going to always draw my distribution, drawing that I'm multiplying 3x times x squared, negative 4x, and positive 4. And so when I do this, I'm going to multiply the number part by the variable part. So I'm going to multiply 3 times, again, x squared is 1x squared, so 3 times 1 gives me 3. X times x squared, from last chapter, it's x to the first times x squared, so I get x to the third power. Again, I add my exponents of like bases. Next one is 3 times negative 4, which gives me negative 12. X to the first times x to the first gives me x to the second. And then last, 3x to the first times 4. 3 times 4 gives me 12, positive 12. And then the x to the first is being multiplied by nothing. It doesn't go away, though, so I just have a regular x. Same thing over here. Draw my distribution. And so it's negative 1x to the third power. So negative 1 times 9 gives me negative 9. X to the 7th minus, or sorry, actually that's going to be negative 1 times negative 2 gives me a positive 2. X to the 6th, 3 plus 3. And then here, negative 1 times 7 gives me negative 7, and then x to the third just can't disappear, and so it stays x to the third. So these are my answers when I'm multiplying. Again, I'll multiply the coefficients by each other and then multiply the variables by each other. Next, I have, I'm going to sneeze. Excuse me. So, if I have a common factor, what we'll do is, with factoring, it's the opposite of multiplying. So I'm going to start with something that's like this, and I'm going to take out a negative x to the third power, and so I'm going to be left with an answer that looks like a monomial on the outside, and then a trinomial left on the inside, or however many terms I started with. So, GCF of the coefficients is the biggest number that divides all of the numbers evenly. And the GCF of my variables is the variable with the smallest exponent. And so when I do this, again, this first example I look at, 4x to the fourth plus 20x to the third plus 24x squared. The biggest number that divides 4, 20, and 24 evenly is 4. So I'm going to write a 4 on the outside. And then I've got x to the fourth, x to the third, and x squared. So the GCF of my variables is the one with the smallest exponent, so it'll be x squared. Left on the inside, then, I take each one of these terms and I divide it by my GCF, which is 4x squared. So 4x to the fourth divided by 4x squared. 4 divided by 4 gives me 1. X to the fourth divided by x squared gives me x squared. 20 divided by 4 gives me 5. X to the third divided by x squared gives me x to the first. And then 24 divided by 4 gives me 6. X squared divided by x squared gives me 1. It cancels out, and so I'm left with no x's. And so this is my final answer in factored form. The second one, the biggest number that divides 45 and 20 should be 5. My smallest exponent is x squared. So I'm going to divide both these terms by 5x squared. So I'm left with 9x squared minus 4. And then the last one, 2x squared minus 8. This one's tricky. Again, my GCF of my coefficients is going to be 2. That's the biggest number that divides them both evenly. But then the thing that we need to be careful with is the smallest exponent. This one actually doesn't have a variable with an exponent, and so I can't take out a variable if I don't have a variable there. So my greatest common factor is just 2 with no variable, no x. And so, again, divide each one of these, 2 divided by 2, and then I need to leave the x squared on it, minus, and then 8 divided by 2 gives me 4. And then this last one, look at my numbers, the biggest number that divides 4, 24, and 45 evenly, there's no number other than 1. Again, go through your list, try different things, but none of them are going to divide them all evenly. And I can't just do 2, it has to be all 3 terms. And so 1, and then my smallest exponent is going to be this x to the first, so 1x is going to be my GCF, divide each one of these terms. So I get 4x to the fourth minus 24x squared plus 45. And that's my answer in factored form. And there's your homework. Extra credit is number 38.